Hi, my name is Juan, and welcome to The Couch, a podcast where real therapists talk about real things. Please remember that we are therapists, but we are not your therapists, and this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. All right, my friends, so we are going to talk all about seasonal affective disorder. Now, this is a really important topic. Today is November 14th. So I want you to know that because it's a great time to talk about seasonal affective disorder. Now, this is also known as like the winter blues. And there's actually a lot of individuals. I know myself as a clinician over at Santos Counseling, I've met many individuals throughout my life. And you may be one of those where when it comes to that fall time, it starts to get cold, right? The days feel shorter. It's cloudy, rainy. Literally like today, November 14th, I'm recording here in the GSO, Greensboro, North Carolina area, and it's raining today, right? It's cloudy. It's cold. It's like in the 50s. And more than likely, right, most people don't like that type of weather. It's a great type of weather where you wake up and you're like, I just want to stay home, right? I don't want to be around anyone. I just want to stay at home, cuddle with a blanket, maybe cut the fireplace on, watch The Office reruns all day or Seinfeld or just something, right? You kind of want to just get away. So during this fall winter time, individuals from the mental health component, they can develop what's called seasonal affective disorder. SAD stands for SAD. And as I mentioned before, a lot of people know this more as the winter blues. Like, hey, do you ever get some of that winter blues? And you're like, yes. That's where fall starts to come in, maybe from like October all the way through February. You start to notice that you feel sad. You start to notice that you don't want to go out as much. You don't want to socialize as much. You want to stay in, right? So what I'm sharing here, and why I think this is really a great conversation piece to have over dinner or to communicate with yourself on, is that we need to have this awareness. We need to plan ahead. So as we're going into the winter and it's going to get colder and colder, why not plan ahead? Why not, just prepare effectively so that you're able to take care of your mental health? So what we're going to do in today's episode is we're going to go into SAD, seasonal affective disorder. We're going to talk about what it is, common symptoms. We're going to look for ways to address it, coping skills, if you will. We're going to just surround that entire area. My goal is that you get excited, that you enjoyed this episode, that you find it helpful. I think mental health is a really interesting domain of life. It's an interesting place, and certainly we can make the topic very boring. And hopefully, I'm not doing that for you. Now, there's common symptoms that come up with seasonal affective disorder. And I may, during this episode, say seasonal affective disorder. I may say winter blues. So these symptoms, in case you're starting to feel them, and remember, it takes place in that fall time. So it's somewhere around like October all the way through February, depending on where you live too. I'm in the U.S., North Carolina. So around right now, as I mentioned, November 14th, it's about 50. It's rainy. It's cold outside. Let's see. My smartwatch says that it is 46 outside. And it's been raining most of the day. So that tells me I'm pretty much in it all the way through more than likely February. So what happens during this winter time? And then what are the symptoms? Well, during the winter time, we know that it's colder outside. We know there's less sunlight. We know there's shorter days. Often that means cloudy days too. And because there's shorter days and less sunlight, right, the obvious is that we're going to get less vitamin D. Now, let's think about that. What does vitamin D do? Right? Vitamin D helps with a lot of really interesting things. And I think when we look at it, often one of the things people tell me is, that's for like bone growth, right? Yes, right. You are right. That certainly helps there. There's a huge list, and you can go the other way around of vitamin B deficiency, right? So vitamin B deficiency could be muscle pain. It could be bone pain. It could be increased sensitivity to certain areas of the body. For us, let's keep things a little bit simple, if you will. Let's look at vitamin D from the point of view of mental health. right? So during this winter time, you go outside, the days are shorter, it's getting dark, it's maybe not as fun to get out there, so you're spending less time with the sun. What's the consequence of that? Well, less time with the sun can impact our vitamin D level. Vitamin D level goes down, right? Starts to go down. That's my sound effect for it going down. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That affects our mood, right? Our mood, that goes into brain health. And from there, we can feel irritable. We could feel on edge. That deficiency can lead to risk in mental health, as far as risk where we can have a stronger likelihood to lean towards that side of depression. Now, here's what I want you to look at this as we talk about it. I want you to think more of it from a logic point of view, right? I want you to consider what happens during the winter months. Well, let's start with the summer, right? Summer, it's sunny. It's you go outside. More than likely, you socialize a bit more because everyone's outside. And if you're soaking up the vitamin D, then that means, right, that you're like Superman out there. So you're absorbing it. So that's affecting your mood stability, improving your mental health. And I say we look at it from a perspective of logic, because if we're getting less of it, then of course it's going to affect our mood stability. Now, some of the symptoms that you may notice during this seasonal affective disorder phase, which I'll mention, as I mentioned the symptoms, this is why it's so important to get ahead of it, right? Plan ahead instead of waiting for this thing to hit you like a Mike Tyson punch. Now, the symptoms, and I get some of these, and you're going to find that some of these are actually pretty interesting, where they take place, and then you're like, oh, well, these dots connect. That makes sense. Right, so here's some of the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. A lack of motivation. Right? You don't feel as motivated. A decrease in energy. Your sleep is off. Either you're sleeping too much or sleeping too little. Appetite, sometimes that one tends to go up for individuals during this time. And then you have a decrease in interest to spend time with peers, which leads to social isolation. So I mentioned earlier, why, right? Why are these things happening? Let's try to connect some of these dots. So if you think about the social aspect, I know for me as an example, during the summer, I like to get out, maybe play some pickleball, maybe get with a friend and hit some balls, maybe go to a golf range and just, I'm not great at it, but we'll hit the long range and just, talk a little bit, have fun, hit some balls. I may shoot some basketball with someone. I may go out with my kids and play soccer. And then I got a day like today, right? I woke up today and I was like, oh, I don't even want to get up, right? It's rainy. It's not, my version of a really pretty day. I wanted to stay in. I did not want to exercise. I didn't really want to socialize and hang out with anybody. So you think about those things and you go, what if this takes place for months, right? From October, November, December, January, February. And then it's 5 months. And we're just going to ballpark that each one has 30 days, right? 5 times 3, that's 150 days. What if I do that for 150 days? What is the consequence? Well, the consequence of me for 150 days of avoidance, right? Of not going out as much. Over time, I'm probably going to go from not going out as much to feeling isolated, to feeling that I'm not socially engaged with others. And we need that engagement. Right? We need to engage with others to build community, to build connection, to feel energized. And what's going to happen if I had that same feeling, right? That it's muggy outside. I don't want to go outside. It's cold. It's rainy. Well, now that I'm indoors, I may exercise less because I'm moving a little bit less. And if I'm moving a little bit less, hopefully most of the individuals know the relationship between fitness and mental health. And just as a little side note, you increase fitness, right? That's movement, yoga, pumping weight, etc. And that right away affects your feel-good hormones, right? So that improves your mental health. There's great research that goes into that. But what I'm saying here is during this SAD, seasonal affective disorder phase of life, right, that takes place in these winter months, all the way from fall to like February, if I keep this conversation in a very rational way, and I go, okay, if I am spending less time with people, if I'm going out less, if I am less motivated to do those things, well, I am likely now to have a decline in my mental health. I'm probably going to start feeling anxious. And I remember a while back when I first got into clinical practice, I was working with this individual, and after getting to know their history, we made like this timeline. The timeline was really neat because it showed us that SAD, seasonal affective disorder, for them was showing up for years. But what would happen is they would kind of buckle down during those cold months. And by the time they're hitting like March, April, May, they were feeling better. So they were like, there's no point to go to a therapist. Well, when we met, it was in the midst of that, and things got really low. Depression really heightened. So I did this exercise, which is called a timeline one. So I look back at, let's not just look at what brought you in here today. Let's look at the whole course of your life. And we started to just log, what was last year like, and the year before that one, and the year before that one. And then we kept going, and then we triangulated this area, right? We hyper-focused on this zone, which was around that whole fall to winter. And then I brought up the topic of SAD. I said, have you heard of seasonal affective disorder? They were like, no. And then from there, I said, okay, it's also called the winter blues. They're like, yes, I have heard of the winter blues. And then they mentioned that during the winter, things do get a little bit different for them. So from there, we dug deep. And that led to this interesting item that I found with a lot of individuals. And it's where we go away from those cold months and we go into like that March, spring, summer. And then we forgot all about those really difficult moments. In this individual, that's what happened with them. They forgot all about those difficult moments during that cold season. And because of the history of happening over and over and over, I guess it just took its toll and then impacted them to the point that was the option. Let me seek some support. So what I want to share here with you is I want you to look at how can you avoid that from happening, right? What can you start to do today to plan ahead of time? Now, I'm not going to leave you there, stranded. Let's do this together. So we broke down some of those symptoms. And before we go into like the coping skills and all of that, I wanted to share this really neat study. So this one focused on illuminance, so the measure of light. And it came from a psych post. So it's a neuroscientist that looked into this, and I thought it was really neat. And basically what they found from this study is the higher that level of light to specific regions of the brain, one specific region, the hypothalamus, right there, they found that there's a effect on emotional processing, executive functioning. And for me, I was like, that's pretty neat there. Now, we can expand it a little bit and kind of look at, well, what does sunlight do, right? Receiving this light, we know that it's really important for regulating our sleep, right? Our sleep and wake cycle, for cognitive functioning, right? For helping us feel awake and alive. I have this friend of mine that got me a while back into hunting, and I'm not like a huge hunter, if you will. This is more of a someone I met, and then that's what they did, and they enjoy it, self-care for them. I like to fish, and I like to fish because it's extremely quiet. And if a fish doesn't bite, I don't care because I get my quiet, peaceful time, right? So you understand why I like to fish. Now, of course, once that fish bites, I get super excited. And then afterwards, when I talk about my story of fishing, I'm over there like the book Big Fish, right? My story is just a little exaggerated. But that's my 2 cents there. So this friend, we're out and we're hunting, and I'm in a tree stand, right? So there's like the stand, you climb up and then you sit in a tree. Now we're out there early in the morning, which sucks. I mean, that's just the truth of it, right? You're out there, and it's early in the morning and it's cold, so I'm freezing my butt off. And there's a point to the story. I'm freezing my butt off, and I got gloves on, and I've got everything that I need situated there. I'm looking for where's the deer. I'm cold. I'm trying to sip my coffee, and I barely want to move, right? You don't want to move because you don't want to scare any of the animals. Now, I already told my friend, I said, look, I'm really here to see how this relates to fishing, right? Because he was sharing with me, hey, it's kind of like fishing. You go out there and you hunt, and you may see nothing, right? You may just see some squirrels, birds, etc. So then I was like, that sounds like it could be pretty peaceful. Now, this day, it was my first time going out, and he said, I think you'll like going out in the morning. So we go out, and we're out there like really really early before daybreak, before sunlight. And as I'm on the stand, I get to see the whole world wake up. Right? I get to see the exposure of light and how it affects animals. And I see the squirrels waking up and the birds waking up and they're shaking. And that's the point, right? That's the whole point that I brought this study up in this example is when you think about seasonal affective disorder, right? There has to be that understanding that there's less sunlight. And at some point we need to just stop and go, what's this effect of sunlight? What does it do to, our planet, right? We know what it does to plants, and it does a great job for plants, right? Go back to K through 12 photosynthesis. Now, that was something that took a while to learn. So for us, right, as humans, we really need it, right? It's important to us. And I'm sitting there on that deer stand, and I'm just witnessing, while freezing my butt off, the beauty of everything just waking up. The sun hits me, and that feeling you get where you're just really, really cold, and then you see where the sun is at, so you sneak to it, and then it hits you, and it feels so good, right? It feels so warm. And then you get really annoyed when it goes away. So I'm in the woods, the sun hits me, I'm enjoying it, I am soaking it up. Now, with seasonal affective disorder, because we get less sunlight, we can't soak all of that up. So now let's dive into these strategies. So here's one of the first strategies that I think is really helpful. Find that time to soak up the sun. And sometimes that time, my friends, can be very inconvenient. It could be that you're having to wake up a little bit earlier. If you're somebody that works from home, maybe set your work zone near a window so you can get some of that exposure. If you're working in an office and you don't have a window nearby, see if you can schedule maybe an early morning lunch or early morning brunch, if you will, or just sometime in that early morning to get that exposure. I had another individual I worked with in their office. They didn't have windows that gave them that exposure. So he came up with a really neat practice. He would park far away from his building, and then he would just make that walk all the way there, soak up as much as that sunlight. And then that became like a nice little routine. So he's getting a little exercise, some sunlight. And it's not like these giant actions that we're doing. It's just tiny little leaps, right? Tiny steps to get to that place. Next item that I want you to look at is when it comes to seasonal affective disorder is a reflection. I want you to think back about your own life. I want you to think back about what happened last year. What was it like for you from around October to February? How did you navigate the Halloween season, Thanksgiving season, Christmas season, New Year, some of those major holidays? How did you feel during that time? Often with seasonal affective disorder, it's coupled, right? Because during that time, we also have the holidays, which can make it a little bit easier, or it can make it a little more challenging depending on just our own situation with the holidays. So I want you to think about what took place last year and the year before, and how did you feel? So let's just say that you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, okay, all right, last year was rough. Last year, things were really difficult. During the fall, I felt depressed. I saw my counselor more often. I had to maybe increase my medication, maybe Zoloft or something around that category you were on. So those are some signs that you can go to, and those signs can give you some information of, okay, this seems like a difficult time. Now, from there, once you have that information in front of you, the next step, right, that's really important. The next step that you can take is looking at what can I start doing now to make things a little bit more productive, more effective, a little bit easier on you. So let's play with an example here. Let's say that last year I'm sitting down with you and then I'm telling you about last year. I said last year I did feel a little more depressed. Maybe one of the recommendations that you would give me is Well, what if you start doing a 15-minute exercise 2 to 3 times a week during this fall season? And that could be the way of combating some of that low vitamin D coming in, which is going to impact mood stability, mood regulation. Maybe you could start using the exercise to boost your mood, boost your well-being, to feel stronger. So that's one little seed that you could plant that can help to prepare ahead, right? And what I want you to think about is, if you make a guess, right, an assumption that as the season progresses, seasonal affective disorder starts to hit you, and that means that you've got maybe a little more sadness, maybe you have a little less motivation, maybe you're staying in bed a little bit longer. So then you plug in the exercise to address those things that are likely to already happen, right? That's planning ahead, if you will. Some benefits of exercise: reduction in stress, improvement in pain. Some exercises like yoga can really teach you about managing your own pain. Circulation, right? So improvement in circulation, reduction in risk to injury. Improvement in strength and flexibility and muscle tone, right? So really a lot of positives there to come with exercise, whether it's jumping around, playing basketball, doing some yoga. Plug one of those in there. Another neat one that I like to have in here when it comes to seasonal affective disorder is creating a accountability support system. So I mentioned earlier, I like playing different sports. I mentioned pickleball, golf, basketball, maybe soccer. So one of the things that I like to try to do is I like to try to hold accountability with some of my friends. And that could be where we are consistently reaching out to each other of, hey, what are you doing after work? Let's meet up over here. So we got a park nearby where I live called Burr Mill. So we may go down there, play some pickleball. I like to run sometimes, trail run through the woods, and I live pretty close to the Greenway. So it may be of, hey, let's meet up at this trail, and then we'll, hit a mile, walk and run or something. Doing those type of things with the little, it's little, but it's impactful, of accountability. That helps during those days that you wake up, like today, I woke up and it's really raining. Having somebody to send me that message, or vice versa, I send them a message of, hey, I see it's raining, so instead of running outside, let's do an indoor workout. You want to go maybe your house, my house, where do you want to do it at? Or we meet at the local gym, right? That little system of accountability, it goes such a long way during those difficult months ahead, right? During that seasonal affective disorder months. The other and last one, then we'll finish up here. I'm hoping that you found this episode really helpful. I really am. The other item that I want you to look at when it comes to seasonal affective disorder is connecting with a counselor. Now, if you're in the Greensboro area, reach out to, I'll plug my practice in because I love working there. Reach out to Santos Counseling, reach out to us. We are growing day by day and really thankful for this community. If you're a little bit further away, find a counselor near you. Now, here's the purpose of it. The purpose, there's a lot of variables that can go into the purpose, but one of them is so that you can sit with this individual, share your history, maybe utilize some assessments that go into depression or anxiety that explore this area of seasonal affective disorder. And then they can provide you with tools, right? Different tools that are specific to a modality of treatment. As an example, it may be that for you, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is really appropriate. Or maybe it's more of like a DBT. Now, that one is great for individuals that really like action-oriented activities. Very black and white. Let's do this to get to this point. And there's a lot more theories, approaches, modalities, techniques that can be utilized. Sitting in there with a professional, it gives you that leverage, right? It puts the right person on your team. And I think that's one of those items that we're told a lot about. Bring resources around you, bring a support system around you. That way you have aid, right? You have somebody to bounce ideas off of to help you move forward just a little bit, one step at a time. So that wraps up our entry level conversation on seasonal affective disorder. And I say entry level because it's really a big topic. With seasonal affective disorder, we could have went into a whole lot of categories. We could have went into the impact of the brain. We could have went into common cases of how it impacts different individuals, because it does impact people differently, all the way from fatigue, low mood, loss of energy, etc. The list can really go on when it comes to seasonal affective disorder. I had one individual, and this is another clinician, kind of see it as a winter hibernation effect. And I thought that was really interesting because, when you look at hibernation, it's like you're taking a break from a lot of things. However, taking a break from a lot of things can lead to not doing those things, such as exercise, which then has a negative consequence. And then also with that winter hibernation effect, it's a neat term. There you have a shift in your mood, right? Sleep shift as well, because hibernation, like a bear, lots of sleep. And then with it, right, going back to the sun, those shorter days, that impacts our serotonin levels, that impacts our mood, right? We could have went into a really big conversation on that. My hope is that you see it from a big picture, right? You look at this area. We don't have to sit in an actual classroom and go into all of the bullet points of what it is. Instead, and that's the big goal of this podcast, is that it's a safe, it's a constructive space for you to understand different areas of mental health, and then have tools, have guidance, a place where it's a licensed, educated clinician behind the mic providing you with some feedback. Yeah, so that wraps it up, as Mr. Dave Chappelle. If you ever watched that back in the day, my brain directly went there. Thank you for listening. Share this episode with anybody in your circle that you think would find it helpful, beneficial. Enjoy the winter. Enjoy the fall. We're still in fall. And then as winter comes, enjoy the winter.